Hi, I'm Larry Bayonne. I'm chair of the guitar department here at Berklee College of Music. And it's my pleasure to work with you in a modern method for guitar. The author, William Levitt, or as he told everyone to call him, Bill, was my teacher. And he taught here for 40 years. He also wrote wonderful material for the department, for the school, and actually for you, which starts with A Modern Method for Guitar, Volume 1. He influenced the teaching of guitar. He influenced the playing of guitar and the organization of studying the instrument. I've told you that Bill was my teacher, and we're in the room that he taught me. This was Bill's room that he taught. And I'm honored to be able to teach in this room, and I'm honored to be able to go through this book with you. In many ways, Bill will be your teacher also. In this book, there are so many things that will help you to play your guitar and get better. There are arpeggio studies, chord etudes, chord solos, chord forms that you will learn, picking etudes, speed studies, scales, reading studies, movable scale fingerings. All of these will help you to learn the instrument and to play music. After you're done with this book, and actually while you're playing this book, you will develop a sense of musicality, you will develop strength in your hands, you will develop a sense of time with the chords, a sense of melody, and you will just get better as a guitarist and as a musician. It's been wonderful just going through this book again and looking at the things that I still have to practice. That's another thing. In this book, you should be not stuck on one page. You should continue on. You should play something, let's say page 38. You have problems with 38. Do the best you can and move on to 39 and 40. Then go back and review 38. This book should be reviewed page by page, section by section, different areas at different times, so that you can master the guitar and enjoy playing the guitar. You should be playing everything very slowly. This will help you strengthen especially your left hand. You should be playing everything evenly and at a steady tempo. This will give you the sense of musicality. This will give you a sense of phrasing and also strength and timing. It's important that you play things slowly, and very important that you play things at an even tempo. I will play most of this book with a metronome with you. And I hope that you will also have a metronome and possibly play things slower than we're playing together, and hopefully faster than what we play together. All the duets you will be able to play with me either part, and they will be played with a metronome. So let's begin. So let's get started. Before we go into specifics about the book, let me tell you about how I teach and how I hold the guitar. The guitar should always be balanced, and you should never be holding the guitar with any of your hands. It should be balanced. My suggestion is always to use a strap, whether you're playing a hollow body guitar or solid body guitar. I have the strap so that it is situated that exactly how I would sit. Usually I would cross my leg, either this leg or this leg, and the guitar is always in the same position. One of the mistakes that my students make is that they play the guitar without a strap, sitting down, and then when they stand up, they play, and the guitar is down here. Well, there's a big difference between playing the scales with the guitar in this position and down here. So try to make the guitar always in the same position, whether you're standing up or sitting down. So we've covered that you hold the guitar so that your hands are free. And let's talk about your left hand right now. Your left hand, first of all, the fingers on the left hand are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4. We don't number the thumb. So when we talk about first finger, it's always the index finger. All right, and it's because those are the fingers that are playing on our fingerboard. On our fingerboard, there are frets. They're the spaces in between these fret bars. Usually, the first fret will be played with the first finger, second fret, anything the second fret, second finger, third, fourth. Usually play it with the tips of your fingers. Now, how do you hold your left hand? One method that I use is that I put my fingers on each of the frets on the first string, each of the first 4 frets. When I do this, my left hand gets in a very good position, and I'll turn here so you can see my thumb. My thumb is flat behind around the second fret. The fatty portion of the thumb is the part that's pressing against the neck. That way we don't hurt ourselves. If we're doing it with the tip of the thumb on the bone, that will start to hurt with all our practicing. So we keep the thumb flat. So if I have my thumb here, my finger situated, I could play many notes without moving the hand back and forth. The strings are numbered from the highest sound. So the highest sounding string is the first string, the lowest sounding string is the 6th string. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. All right. The next thing is how to hold the pick in your right hand. What I do is that I bend my index finger, put the pick flat against the side of the index finger. Again, we're using the fatty portion of our thumb. Put it on the pick, and it's just like that. And the way I strum notes on the guitar, on each string, we're going to call them rest strokes, meaning that whenever you play a note, the pick rests on the next string. Here I'm playing the 5th string, and it goes and rests on the 4th string. 6th string rests on the 5th string. Now, what happens when we play the first string? The first string, we just make believe there's a string underneath it, so that we don't do this or do this. We just go just about the same distance. So we always know where our right hand is. Just get used to picking the string and letting the pick just fall on the next string. Don't do that, just relax. Let it just fall against there. It doesn't have to be loud. Okay, how to tune the guitar. My first suggestion is always carry a tuner with you. The tuner you always have the guitar in the right pitch. You'll always be able to play with other people, and you'll get used to the sounds of the notes and the pitches so that you could start to recognize notes. It's also excellent to have the tune always tuned to pitch for the neck. It keeps the pressure on the neck always the same, the way it should be, all right? And you'll be used to sounds. You'll be getting to know sounds. If you don't have a tuner, which if you came into my lesson without a tuner, I'd say go and get the tuner. But if you don't have a tuner right now, there is a method to tune the guitar without a tuner, and it's on page 3. And it says to tune the guitar using a piano what you do is tune the first string, again the highest sounding string, to the first E above middle C. So let's say we tune this E to the first E above middle C on the piano. To tune the rest of the guitar, first of all you go to the 5th fret of the 2nd string and tune this note to sound like the first string. Then you go to the 4th fret of the 3rd string and you tune that note to sound like the 2nd string. The rest are all 5th frets. We go to the 5th fret of the 4th string, tune it to the 3rd, 5th fret of 5th string, tune it to the 4th, 5th fret of 6th string. Tune it to the 5th. There we go. Okay. In this method, you will not only learn about guitar, you learn about music, about written music, how to read on the instrument. So you're going to see everything written on a staff that has 5 lines and 4 spaces. It will be written in measures, as it has here on the 3rd page. You can see measures and bar lines that separate the measures. It will be written in treble clef, which is also called G clef. Now I'd like to talk about the common time values of the notes. Whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, and eighth notes, as on page 3 at the bottom of the page. Whole notes get 4 beats, half notes get 2 beats, quarter notes get 1 beat, and eighth notes get a half a beat, or 2 eighth notes per beat. So if I were to just show you, this is one of our other friends. Along with our tuner, we have a metronome. Whole notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Half notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Eighth notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And I will talk more about these notes as we go on in the next few pages. On page 4, on top of the page talks about time signatures. The top number of the time signature will tell you how many beats there are in a measure, and the bottom is the type of note that gets 1 beat. And what's the most common is 4/4 time. 4 beats per measure, quarter note gets 1 beat. Actually, that's exactly what we did when we played these time value notes that we just had played. It is so common, 4/4, that we also have a sign instead of 4/4. We have a note sign C, meaning common time or 4/4 time. This book is in 2 sections, and the first section that we're going to work on, it concerns playing in the first position. What is a position on the guitar? A position is the area on which you play the notes with your left hand. And the number of the position is where your first finger normally plays everything. We're going to play everything in the first position, meaning that the first finger plays everything first fret, second finger, second fret, third, third, fourth, fourth. If we were to play something in the 5th position, it would be first finger in the 5th fret, second finger in the 6th fret, third, 7th fret, fourth finger in the 8th fret. So we're going to be in first position. It's also called open position because you're able to play many notes open strings without pressing on the frets. So we're going to learn your first scale, and that's the C scale. The C scale, if you look at a piano, has all the notes, all the white notes on the piano. Those are the notes that are contained in the C scale. So we're going to go over a number of things about terminology right now, and then we're going to play more. Just to explain how to find the fingering and how to play the note of each of these exercises. Let's just look at the, not exercise 1, but the two lines above exercise 1 that state the scale. You see C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Those are above the notes, so those are the names of the notes. Now there are numbers actually that are next to the notes in circles. Those indicate throughout this whole method the string that you play the note on. All right? And the numbers that are above the notes, no circles around them, are the fingers that you use. So in other words, there's a note C that's played, circle, 5th string, with your 3rd finger, which we're in 1st position, so it would be 3rd fret. D is 4th string, open. E is 4th string, 2nd fret. F, 3rd fret. G, open 3rd. A, 2nd fret, 3rd string. B, open 2nd. C, 2nd string, 1st. Okay, so this is what those two lines sound like. They're half notes, so they get 2 beats each. 1, 2, 3, 4. While you're playing, look at the notes, not just the fingerings. Okay, now here's something that I will mention throughout these lessons. The easiest way to play guitar is staccato. Staccato meaning the notes are short. It also takes the least amount of strength. We want to learn how to play legato, which means you're holding the notes throughout the whole time value of that note and trying to connect the notes. This is not only important musically, it is important physically. You will build strength with your left hand, and that's a very important hand to have strength in, to play notes and chords by playing legato and practicing that way. So you may get tired of me saying it, but here's the first time. Let's play legato, okay? Exercise 1 uses all the notes from the C scale that we just played. Here it is. 1, 2, 3, 4. Second line coming up. Notice open G, E, F. Let that pick fall to the next string. One, two, three, four. When you're looking at the music, get used to looking at the note, not just the fingering. That way you'll start to recognize the notes. If you have good hand position and your pick is always playing rest, you know where your fingers are on the left hand and you know where the pick is on the right hand. You can concentrate on looking at the notes. Also, when playing a piece of music that you're reading, it's always good as soon as you play that first note, you concentrate on looking at the second note and playing that in time. So let's look at exercise 2, which is on page 5. This is the beginning of playing chords. Why do I say that? Chords are 3 or more notes that are played together. And this is how we start playing chords, written out notes for these chords. If you notice, it says hold notes down so that we're prepared to play that chord. So the first 2 measures have a C, an E, and a G, and then we play all 3 together. Then the next 2 measures, F, A, C, hold all those notes together, thus also exercising the hand and giving it strength. Play the F chord. That's F. F, G, B. Play those notes together. Then E, G, C. All right, and hold those chords out. When you're playing a chord, the note that you want to hear, if it's not just a rhythm chord, if it's a written chord like this, you always want to hear the top note loudest. So that's why we can hear it when we do that rest stroke. So now I will play exercise 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold those notes down. Always look ahead. Good. I'll keep the metronome going because we'll go right into exercise 3, which is the same principle. We're playing the notes, holding the notes, and then strumming those notes to make a chord. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it. Keep that C down now. F is played with your 4th finger. In the 1, 2, 3, 4, 4th measure of that exercise 3, there is a, actually it starts in the 3rd when we play C, F, A. We're going to use our 4th finger playing that F. Yes, we're still in 2nd position, but many times we have to move some fingers around so that we can get the notes to sound. So you might want to practice. That's the hardest part of that exercise. And you will see that chord in exercise 4. So what I will do now is let's play exercise 4. This is combining scale and chords. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. that last chord in the last measure is a combination of and. Okay, so I don't expect you to play this right away with me. What I expect you to do is see the way I play it, and then I want you to practice it. Practice each measure, trying to get those chords, play it slowly, and then try playing it with me. Look at it again, observe me playing it. Again, look at the music. The metronome is on 80 beats per minute. So, and then work it out so that you can play it with me. And now we're going to do our first duet, C to C. For all the duets, I will play each part for you, then I will teach each part to you, and then you'll have the opportunity to play each part with the corresponding part. So let's start with C to C. Part 1. First part. 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's look at the first part. This is mostly a review of the chords that you had in the 2 previous pages. Whenever you're playing these chords, as soon as you play that one chord, you look to the next one and prepare in your mind how to play that next chord. In other words, if we're playing the first chord, which is a C chord, as soon as I play that, I notice that I can keep my first finger on C and move the other 2 notes to play what is known as the F chord. And back to the original chord. The third chord, all we have to do is play the note F and open strings B and G, and back to, and then. So how I would practice this is just to make sure, first, without a tempo, trying to connect the chords. Now, one of the problems that people have when they're reading duets or music that goes to another line, they forget to look at the next line as quickly as possible so that they're prepared to play in tempo the first note or chord that comes in on the first measure of the second line. So as I'm playing, I am looking and preparing for that next chord on the second line, which is actually the hardest chord that you have so far. So I'm playing this low C chord, so it's 1, 2, I'm looking at the next chord, and then also at the bottom of the page, the last measure of the first part at the bottom of the page, we have, make sure there's no half note or whole note to go to the top of the next page, so make sure you know what's coming next. G, then F, then we're counting 2 beats. 2 beats. Get the notes. Look ahead after the G, then the 2 notes. Look ahead. Hopefully you looked at the music while you were listening to me playing and also looking at me playing this. Whenever I look at a piece of music, I like to see the form of the music and see what's happening, if there's any repetition of phrases, and for me to hear it and for me to practice it. In this piece, if you notice, the first 8 measures are basically repeated again in the second 8 measures. Just one little difference in the last measure of the first page. And if we look at the last 8 measures, that's the same as the first 8 measures. We can call that form A. And if we look at the first 8 measures on the second page, that is different than what we played in the previous measures. So let's call that B. So what actually comes out to in 8 measure phrases, A, B, A. So now I'd like you to practice that, and I'll play the second part for you when you're done practicing the first part. Here's part 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. As we noted in part 1, we had this AABA form of 8 measures each. And we could have guessed that we would have the same thing in part 2, and we do. The first 8 measures is a different way of that we have played the scale. We have more skipping around of the major scale, C major scale. As I talked about looking ahead while you're playing the chords, it's a little harder to look ahead with quarter notes, But after a while, with practice, you'll know what is to come ahead, and hopefully you will be practicing it as legato as possible. Not, we don't want that. We want legato. On the first measure of the second line, you have that rhythm of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and then all quarter notes. The way I count any type of rhythm, I don't say that the half note just gets 2 beats and I count 1, 2. I include it in the measure. In other words, I don't go 1, 1, 2, 1. What I do is I call it what it is in the beat in the measure. So correspondingly, I'm doing 1, the D gets beats 2 and 3, and I come in on 4 on the F. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Mostly, that's what I would like to say about the A section of this second part, other than continue to play legato smoothly and keep tempo. The second part, the B part of the second part of this duet, is what we call intervals. We're playing 2 notes, not 3 notes together. So again, you prepare it, practice the switching. While you're playing the open B and G, you're already thinking about going to F and A together. So G, I'm thinking of F and A. Repeat that, then go E. And then we have the same type of rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then the last 8 measures are the same as the first 8 measures of the duet. So now I'd like you to practice this, and then you can take advantage of playing these parts with me playing either the same part with you, and hopefully you get independent enough that you can play your own part 1 while I play part 2, and then I'll play part 1 and you play part 2. One of the joys in music is to be able to play with someone else, to blend and to make music together. So when you play a duet, you have to know your part well enough that you're thinking both about your part and listening to how the person's playing the other part. So good luck. 1, 2, 3, 4. On page 8, we learn to play more notes in the C major scale in the upper register of the first position. So we already know the note C on the second string first finger. We're going to learn D with our third finger, meaning also third fret on the second string. E open, the name of our top string. F first finger, first fret, first string. And G, third finger. Now these notes are an octave above the notes that we learned in the first part of our C major scale on our first page that we played. If you find that your hand is moving around too much when you're playing the note D or G, you can keep your first finger down and play C, and then when you play D, just lightly keep your first finger down and play D. Same thing goes when you're playing F and going to G. You can keep your first finger down as just a practice so that your hand doesn't sway back and forth too much. Exercise 5. One, 2, 3, 4. They're half notes. Rest stroke. Exercise 6 has the same notes that we just learned in addition to chords. The first chord that we have in exercise 6 is in the second measure, third beat, and we play it. The next chord that we play is in the last measure of the first line, and there you flatten 2 fingers on the first 2 strings in the first fret, and F, C, then add A. Third chord, second measure, second line. Next measure, then that chord. And the last 4 chords in this exercise now, there's no way that you're going to play this in tempo unless you practice these chords, okay? And try and recognize them and visualize where your fingers go and practice that. Exercise 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just looking back at this exercise, one way to prepare for This is another type of F chord. In the last measure of the first line, you're playing F with your first finger, and then you have to flatten your finger to play that chord. You might just want to flatten your first finger on that note F so that you don't have to move like this. Right before it, D, E, F. Or the other way of not preparing for it is either way is fine. I think it's good to try both ways and see what works for you. Now we come to our chord review and note review. It's called Note and Chord Review on page 9, exercise 7. Exercise 7 has all the notes that you've learned in the C scale, including the notes that you just learned on the first and second string. It reviews some of the chords that we've had in the previous pages. So, here is exercise 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. In that exercise, we have a number of times where you can hold notes down and hold it for the next chord or the next note. Let's look at measure 2 of the third line. You have the note C, then you have a C chord that has a C in it. So definitely keep that first finger down, chord. Next one is A, and then keep that down. The next chord is B, and we don't have to keep anything down. So look for those type of instances that you can take advantage of just keeping the fingers down. Exercise 8 is a review of just the chords that we have been performing in the past few pages. As you notice at the bottom of the page, it says regular review of all materials a must. If you're having problems with this page, it would be good to go back to the previous pages, practice the duet, practice the exercises that we have already gone over, and then you'll find that it'll help you playing this page. Exercise 8. One, two, three, four. You'll notice in the third measure of exercise 8, we have this, it's a part of an F chord. And then when we play the next chord, since we already have our fourth finger in F, we will play that F with our fourth finger. So it goes. Then when we go back to that same type of chord in the next measure, we use our third finger on F. It really is a rule that our fingerings are flexible, and what makes me decide what fingering I use for a chord or a scale or a note depends on what I'm coming from and what I'm going to. Page 10. 1, 2, 3, 4 duet. This again uses all the notes and all the chords that we have already gone over in the previous, let's say, 6 pages, 7 pages. Part 1. One, two, three, four. Again, always look ahead with the chords. The first chord that we play, the second chord is the same, repeats, and then we have to think about putting our fourth finger on D, our third finger on F, and keeping G open. Now here's a chord, C chord. In the second measure of the second line, we have F and A together. Definitely keep the third finger down on F and play the next chord. Keep the third finger down on F and play the next chord. Keep the third finger down and play on F and play the next chord. Then we can go to C. Again, looking at the form, we have basically an AABA form again. The first 8 measures repeat themselves, and then in the second 8 measures, then we have a B section. All that. And back to the A section. So I would like you to practice that part right now. Part 2. Bill always had great names for all his pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4 duet. He wanted to make sure that you knew the count off of this. C to C, the other duet. We were in the key of C the whole time with the range from C to C. So here we go with Part 2 of 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. In part 2, we have more leaps, more skips between notes. Not everything scale-wise, but melodic intervals, usually a third or a fourth. What they do really is outline a sound of a chord. So what I would do is look at the first 2 measures of the second part and notice that that's where we have a lot of melodic leaps and intervals. Here in the last measure, we have into the first note of the... So I would make sure I can practice. I know those are coming up. And that repeats twice. Other than that, everything, keep legato. Make sure you're doing the right rhythm of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. That was actually the first 4 measures of the second page, second line. So now I'd like you to practice this part. And after that, you can play with recordings of me playing part 1, and you could either play part 1 with it or play part 2 with my playing part 1. And then you can have my recording of playing part 2, and you could play part 2 with it, and then you can play also part 1 with my part 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. At the bottom of page 11, we are at the section of rhythm accompaniment. Rhythm accompaniment really means to play chords as a background and for keeping tempo behind the melody, a singer, a horn player, you singing, just playing chords. This is the first time that we are coming to, we are playing of chords that are being labeled, names of chords. I have been calling some chords names, but this is the first time in the book. In the first measure, we have a C chord. The second measure, we have an F chord. These are familiar. We've just been playing them in the previous exercises. Another type of C chord with a higher note in the third measure, and the fourth measure, G7. So the first way to practice this is to just play the chord once each measure, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. back to the second line. C, F, G, G7. The next time we'll do it with the strums. Those lines mean strums. And the last note type in the last measure means that you hold the C chord for 2 beats, just like a half note. 1, 2, 3, 4. So in that time we played chords, but it didn't feel like a rhythm. And the best way to play a rhythm is to have some type of a pulse. And the way to create that, we have an explanation at the bottom of the page, but mostly it's to keep short, a little pause, lift your fingers after the beats 2 and 4, and emphasize 2 and 4. So I'll do that again. It's long. You could do long, short, 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 long, short. With the metronome. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if you notice, the G7, we don't have many notes to stop, to lift off. So what I do is to touch it with my left hand. Or you could do it with your right hand, as it says in the book. Either way, the main thing is to keep that pulse. Now, I don't expect you to go through each exercise with me and just go on to the next exercise. A lot of these exercises take a lot of work to perfect. So now I would expect you to go to practice time and to work on these chords and perfect it so that you could do the pulse and also to smoothly pass from one chord to the next. Page 12 is the rest of the C major scale in first position. We already have the note C. So far we have the rest of the notes in the C major scale on the 5th and 6th string. We'll start with the lowest note. E is the open, 6th string. F, G. Then we have A open, B going into the C that we already know. E, F, G, A, B, C, which is an octave below F, G, A, B, C. Exercise 9. 1, 2, 3, 4. keep those notes held. It's a little harder because they're lower notes. Third finger. Rest strokes. The last 4 measures of this exercise is something that you're going to have to practice a lot before you can play it probably in tempo. The main thing is holding down the first notes. Everything's a little harder in this exercise because they're all low notes. They're not as easy to hear, they're a little muddy, but they're actually the bass register of the guitar. So the last 4 measures, actually the 4 measures of the last line. We have this. So you're holding F down and then you're adding. The next one is playing G. Then playing G again and playing the C chord. And then actually adding the note C with your 4th finger to get this. So again, let's play them as whole notes, like 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's play that as they are, half notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Page 13 on exercise 10, again, is a review. And if you have problems with this one, that means you need to really go back and study some more of the exercises before it. It's a review of the complete first position version of the C major scale. So we're actually going from low E to G, all notes in the C scale. It includes chords and melody. In every exercise, Bill always sneaks in something new and something very valuable. In the last measure of the next to the last line, you have a half note F with a A quarter note, a B quarter note, and a little C triad. This is how it's played. You play the F and the A together. The F still rings when you play the B because it should be held for 2 beats, and then you go to the C chord. In other words, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ideally, you hear that F. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Okay, exercise 10, review of the complete first position of the key of C major. 1, 2, 3, 4. After a while, you're starting to recognize these chords and these notes. the C down. Hold the C down. Hold the B down. A. All the low notes, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F. Practice those parts where you hold the notes down. Okay. Page 14, Imitation Duet. Again, it's using all notes in the range of the first position of the C major scale or the key of C. Part 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. Beautiful melodies. Mostly what you need to do with this is to practice and look at some of the sections of the range of the sections that you're playing. The first 8 measures, you're playing a range from this low E to F. So it's all the notes from E to F. And the last section, the last 8 measures, uses the notes from the lower range. So you'll need to practice that. Part 2. One, two, three, four. There isn't anything more to say about part 2 because part 2 is actually part 1 played in a different place. The A section, the first 8 measures of part 1 are the last 8 measures of part 2. And the first 8 measures of part 2 are the last 8 measures of part 1. So if you've practiced part 1 well, you don't need to practice part 2 as much. And now you're ready to play with me. 1, 2, 3, 4. With the completion of Imitation Duet, this completes what I would call our first lesson. Our first lesson consists of the C major scale, first C to C, and then we played notes on the first 2 strings, which extended the C scale, and then we added the notes on the 5th and 6th strings. So we play the C scale in our first position, in addition to that, we played chords that we started reading. So now I would like you to go back and review. If this chunk of material is too much, I would take it a few pages at a time and perfect it, or at least get it so that you can play it in tempo and then continue on.